Hello, everyone. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment with where you're from and what time it is. That way, YouTube will keep pulling you into stories like this. Now, let the shadows take over. I've been driving big rigs since I was 21. I'm 39 now, which means I've spent more of my life behind the wheel of a semi than I have anywhere else. I've hauled it all: lumber, frozen meat, furniture, arcade machines, even a fiberglass dinosaur one time. I've seen just about every type of roadside weirdness this country has to offer. But there's only one delivery that ever made me truly question reality. One route I'll never, ever take again. This happened in October of 2021. I was running a haul from Raleigh, North Carolina to Montgomery, Alabama. Simple run, done it a dozen times. Knew the route like the back of my hand. It was supposed to be an overnight. 12-hour drive, maybe 11 if traffic played nice. I'd timed it so I'd hit Atlanta after the worst of rush hour, but I didn't account for the godforsaken road work they'd started on I-85 that week. 4 lanes of traffic funneled into one, crawling like molasses for 2 solid hours. Dispatch was already on my ass about a tight delivery window, and I was exhausted. But I didn't want to miss the drop time and lose the bonus. So, against my better judgment, I let the GPS reroute me. It showed a detour through some rural roads, said I'd only lose 20 minutes. I figured, hey, quiet country drive through the woods. Nothing I haven't done before. I took the turn at exit 78 onto County Road 14. The sign on the post said, "Whispering Pines Scenic Byway, not maintained after dark." I remember chuckling at that. Thought it was one of those small-town ways of keeping tourists out. Whispering Pines sounded like a damn nature preserve. A peaceful detour, maybe even pretty. At first it was. The road narrowed to 2 lanes, snaking through dense pine forest. No lights, no houses, just trees pressing in from both sides. There were no other vehicles. The darkness was thick, like the kind that swallows your headlights. But I wasn't worried. The rig was humming. I had hot coffee in my thermos, and I was making decent time again. About 30 minutes in, I started to notice something odd. My CB radio crackled to life out of nowhere. At first, I thought someone was broadcasting, but it wasn't a voice. It was breathing. Slow, deliberate, heavy breathing. It didn't come through like regular static. It had depth to it, like someone was exhaling right behind me. I turned the volume down, but the sound didn't change. That's when it hit me. It wasn't coming from the radio. It was inside the cab. I slammed the brakes and came to a hard stop, my trailer groaning behind me. My heart was pounding like a damn bass drum. I grabbed my flashlight and spun around in my seat, yanking open the curtain to the sleeper. Empty. Just my cooler, my sleeping bag, and a few wrappers. No one there. I checked every damn inch of that cab. Nothing. The air felt colder though, like someone had just left. My hair was standing on end, and the sweat on my neck turned ice cold. But I told myself I was being paranoid, sleep-deprived, isolated. I mean, you spend enough hours alone in a cab, and your brain starts making ghosts out of shadows. So, I got back in, turned the engine over again, and started driving. That's when I noticed the road had changed. The pavement had turned to gravel. The trees were closer now, like claustrophobically close. I hadn't made any turns, I was sure of it. But somehow, the road I'd been on wasn't the same one anymore. There were no signs, no markers, not even mileposts. Then, out of nowhere, I saw her. A woman, maybe in her late 20s, walking straight down the center of the road in a pale pink nightgown. Barefoot. Her hair was long and tangled, hanging over most of her face. She didn't flinch as my truck approached, didn't even react to the sound of my engine. I slowed to a crawl and leaned out the window. "Ma'am? You all right?" No response. I got within 20 feet of her before she stopped. Slowly, she turned her head toward me. Just her head, not her body. Her face was wrong. Not just pale. Hollow. Her eyes were completely black, like ink had been poured into her sockets. And her mouth was open, like she was mid-scream. But no sound came out. I put that truck in reverse so fast the tires kicked up gravel. Backed up 100 feet and nearly veered off the road. When I looked back, she was gone. Just gone. I was done. I don't scare easy, but that shook me. I slammed the truck into drive and floored it. Dust and rocks flying everywhere. I just wanted off that road. After what felt like 20 minutes of winding, narrow turns, I saw a sign up ahead. I thought it was a gas station or a way out. Nope, just a wooden sign, nailed to a pine tree, right in the middle of the road. No trucks beyond this point. There was nowhere to turn around. The road was too narrow. I had no choice but to keep going. That's when my GPS shut off completely. Black screen, and then the lights cut out. All of them. No headlights, no dash, no cabin lights. Nothing but the dark. I sat there in total silence, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. And then, there was a knock. 3 soft knocks. From the passenger door. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then the knock came again. "Can I come in?" A little girl's voice. Software, polite. Almost too polite. I whispered, "No." Silence again. For maybe 30 seconds. Then came the footsteps. Crunching gravel, slow and heavy, circling around to my side. Then a whisper, right up against the driver's side window. "Please, Cole." I'm so cold. I never gave my name. I slammed my hand on the ignition, and the engine roared back to life like nothing had happened. Lights came back on. GPS flickered once and displayed a single word in bright red text. Run. I floored it. The truck roared forward, bouncing over potholes and loose gravel. The trees were flashing past like strobe lights in my peripheral. And in my side mirror, I saw movement. Someone, no, something, was running after me. On all fours. I didn't look again. I didn't want to see it clearly. Eventually, the gravel turned back into pavement. I hit a fork in the road and chose the wider one without thinking. A mile later, I burst out onto a state highway, back under real streetlights, real signs, real civilization. I didn't stop until I reached a gas station in Macon. I parked, locked the cab, climbed into the sleeper, and sat with my back against the wall, staring at the curtain. I didn't sleep. Not 1 minute. The next day, I looked up Whispering Pines. Turns out it used to be a town, a logging community from the 1930s. Burned down in 1947. Some say the fire never really ended, that the land swallowed the town whole, and it's been waiting ever since for someone else to wander in. I don't know what I saw. I don't know if it was ghosts, hallucinations, or something worse. But I do know this. I'll never take a detour again. Not through Georgia. Not anywhere. Because some roads weren't made for trucks, and some of them weren't made for people at all. I've been a long-haul driver for nearly a decade now, and I can tell you this. Some highways talk back. Not with words, but with things you notice when you've been behind the wheel too long. The way a light flickers wrong, or how you lose time between towns you swore were miles apart. You get used to solitude in this line of work. You have to. But that night near mile marker 237 made me realize something I'd been trying not to think about for years. The road listens too. This happened back in the summer of 2022. I was running an overnight parts haul through southern Missouri, Tulsa to Cape Girardeau, Route 60 most of the way. Easy stretch I'd done probably 30 times by then. My company trusted me with nighttime runs because I didn't complain, and I made good time. It was peaceful driving after dark. No tourists, no tailgaters, just the hum of my engine and the soft rattle of whatever I was dragging behind me. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I always stopped at the same Greasy Spoon on Tuesdays outside Springfield for their $2 chili dogs. Ate 2 of them around 9 p.m., topped off my thermos, and hit the road again feeling good. The weather was perfect. Clear sky, moonlight glowing over endless fields. I passed through Van Buren just after midnight, flipped the CB to Channel 19, and turned on some old rock to keep my mind sharp. Right around 12:30 a.m., I passed mile marker 236. That's when the CB lit up. Not chatter, just static. Loud, heavy, unnatural static. Like someone was breathing too close to the mic. I reached over and turned the volume down, but the breathing didn't stop. It got clearer, like it was coming from inside the cab. Then a voice, low and calm, barely louder than a whisper. "You're going the wrong way, Brett." I slammed the brakes. My real name isn't used over the radio. My handle is Redwood. I hadn't said my name aloud that night. No one should have known it. I just sat there for a second, blinking, watching the empty road ahead. I grabbed the mic and muttered, "Who the hell is this?" Silence. Then the CB powered off, on its own. That shook me. Hard. But I tried to laugh it off. Maybe I bumped something without realizing it. Maybe the unit glitched. I fiddled with the dials, but it stayed off. Dead. I kept driving, trying not to let my thoughts spiral. 10 minutes later, I passed mile marker 237. That's when I saw it. A phone booth. A full-sized, glass-paneled, old-school booth sitting maybe 15 feet off the shoulder. Fully intact. Lit from the inside by a soft, blue fluorescent bulb. And the phone inside. It was ringing. Now, I've driven this route more times than I can count. There is no booth, not at 237, not anywhere along that stretch. No exits, no side roads, no gas stations. Just you, blacktop, and trees. But there it was, ringing like it had been waiting for me. I slowed down. Against my better judgment, I pulled onto the shoulder. Engine idling. Lights on. I stepped out of the cab and walked toward the booth, the gravel crunching under my boots like it was the only sound left in the world. The booth was pristine. No dust, no rust. Even the glass was spotless, and inside the receiver kept jumping on its cradle with each ring. I hesitated, then opened the door. The moment I stepped inside, the air turned cold. Not cool, cold. Like I'd stepped into a walk-in freezer. My breath fogged up the glass. I picked up the receiver. The ringing stopped. Silence for maybe 5 seconds. Then the same voice as before, this time clearer. "You've already made the wrong turn." Then, click. The phone went dead. The light above flickered twice, then shut off completely. I stood there in total darkness, holding the receiver to my ear with a dead line buzzing in my hand. Then I saw something reflected in the glass, just behind me. A shape, standing near my truck. I spun around. There was nothing there. The booth door creaked as I pushed it open and ran back to the cab. I threw it in gear and got back on the road, hands slick with sweat. I was going 65 in a 45, just wanting to get out of that stretch. The CB was still dead. My phone? Battery at 1%, even though it had been charging the whole time. GPS? Frozen on a blank map. 20 minutes passed. No cars, no lights. Just endless asphalt and the tension climbing up my spine like ice water. Then, headlights. 2 of them. In my mirror, approaching fast. I figured maybe it was a pickup or another driver who'd just pulled onto the highway. but the lights closed in way too fast. Within seconds, they were tailgating me. No high beams, no horn. Just riding so close I couldn't see their grill. I tapped my brakes, trying to scare them back. No response. Then they rammed me. Light, but enough to make my trailer shift. I looked in the mirror again and realized something terrifying. No one was behind the wheel. The car, an old brown sedan, maybe a Crown Vic, was empty. Driver's seat completely vacant. But the steering wheel was turning. The car was adjusting its speed. It was driving itself. Then the high beams flicked on, blinding. I swerved a little and started accelerating. The car kept pace. Every time I sped up, it matched. Every time I changed lanes, it mirrored me. Then it pulled alongside. No engine sound, no license plate. I saw the inside for half a second. Dark, hollow, wrong. Like the seats were made of something that breathed. Then it vanished. Not peeled off, not slowed down, just gone. Like it blinked out of reality. I drove the last hour into Cape Girardeau in silence. No music, no coffee. Just me, the road, and the low hum of terror still sitting heavy in my chest. I got to the delivery yard at 3:14 a.m. I backed the trailer into the bay, clocked out, and parked near the side fence. I didn't sleep. Just sat there, hands shaking, trying to convince myself I didn't imagine the whole thing. At 3:42 a.m., my phone lit up. Blocked number. 1 bar of service. I answered. At first, silence. Then I heard my own voice. "Who the hell is this?" Followed by the click. Before we jump into the next story, if you're enjoying these creepy tales, hit that subscribe button. We've got fresh horror chills waiting for you every night. I've always thought there were certain parts of this country where the night just feels wrong. You know what I mean if you've ever driven through the outskirts of nowhere at 2 a.m., when the air feels heavier than it should, and the silence is too complete. That's what it felt like the night I saw her, just outside Amarillo, Texas, under an old overpass that I'll never forget for as long as I live. This happened in 2019. I'd been driving long haul for over 15 years by then, mostly stuck to the Midwest and Southwest routes. That night, I was hauling frozen poultry from Lubbock down to Albuquerque. Nothing out of the ordinary. I left late because of a warehouse delay, and by the time I hit the open road, it was past midnight. The weather was decent, skies clear, and I was cruising west along US Route 60 with about 6 hours ahead of me. Now, this stretch of Texas doesn't offer much in the way of scenery, just flat scrubland, fences, and the occasional rundown barn. But it's peaceful in its own way. I had a hot thermos, a good playlist, and a full tank of diesel. Everything was smooth, until I hit a detour. Apparently, there'd been a wreck on the main road, and Google Maps rerouted me through some rural farm roads to shave off 20 minutes. I'd done this long enough to know those shortcuts weren't always worth it. But I was running behind, and figured, what the hell? That detour took me down a stretch of cracked, uneven blacktop, lined with rusted barbed wire and empty fields. Not a house in sight. It was the kind of road where your brights barely make a dent in the darkness, and your own engine sounds too loud. I passed a few old, leaning mailboxes, maybe a tractor or two abandoned behind fences, but not a single moving car. About 30 minutes in, I came up on an overpass, just a short concrete bridge running over a dried-up drainage ditch. There was no on-ramp or exit. Looked like a leftover piece of road from a different time. And as I got closer, I saw her. A girl standing dead still under the overpass, facing away from the road. She looked maybe 15 or 16, wearing a white hoodie and jeans, barefoot, her hair long and tangled. She didn't move, didn't flinch at the sound of my engine. Just stood there, stiff as a statue, staring into the field beside her. Now, I've seen hitchhikers, drunk kids, even the occasional runaway. but something about this froze me. I slowed the truck as I passed, leaning toward the window to get a better look. My headlights washed over her and I don't know how to explain it, but her shadow didn't fall the right way. It stretched up the overpass wall, like the light was coming from below her, not in front. I pulled onto the shoulder about 100 feet ahead and sat there a minute, watching in the mirror. She hadn't moved. Something in my gut told me not to get out, not to say anything. But a louder part of me, the decent human part, couldn't just drive away. What if she was hurt? Or lost? I grabbed my flashlight and stepped down from the cab, leaving the engine running. As I walked back, the gravel crunched under my boots, loud in the silence. The closer I got, the colder the air felt. My breath started to fog, even though the temp had been in the 50s just moments earlier. That's when I noticed she wasn't standing still. She was shaking. Not shivering, but vibrating, like someone holding in a scream with every muscle in their body. I stopped about 10 feet away. "You okay?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She didn't respond. "Are you hurt? Do you need help?" Nothing. I took one more cautious step. "Listen, I've got a phone and a first aid kit in the truck. I can call someone for you." Then she moved. Slowly, she turned her head just enough to look over her shoulder. That's when I saw her face. No eyes, just dark, empty sockets. Her mouth hung open wider than it should have been, like her jaw wasn't built right. And her skin looked waxy, like melted plastic left out in the sun. Her head twisted further, like she was trying to turn around without moving her feet. I didn't wait to see what came next. I bolted back to the truck, damn near tripping over myself. I jumped inside, slammed the door, and threw it in gear. As I pulled away, I glanced in the mirror. She was gone. The overpass was empty. I drove for nearly 20 miles without stopping, my hands locked on the wheel, heart hammering against my ribs. Every time I glanced at the mirror, I half expected to see her sitting in the sleeper, or walking along the shoulder behind me. But there was nothing. Just open road and headlights. Eventually, I calmed down enough to pull into a truck stop near Fort Sumner. I parked under the brightest damn lights I could find, grabbed a gas station coffee, and tried to convince myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Maybe it was a mannequin. Maybe I was overtired. But I couldn't shake what I'd seen. Those hollow eyes, that stretched open jaw, the way the air got cold around her. I made my delivery the next morning and didn't say a word to the folks at the dock. What was I supposed to say? "Hey, you ever see a demon teenager hanging out under a bridge in the middle of nowhere?" For a while, I kept that story to myself. I didn't even tell my girlfriend. I figured I'd bury it in the same mental closet where you shove near accidents and creepy dreams. But 2 months later, I stopped for gas just north of Lubbock, and another trucker saw my rig and struck up a conversation. Said he recognized my company logo. Said he used to haul that route himself. Then, without prompting, he says, "You ever go through that overpass outside Amarillo?" Just past the county line. I saw something under there once. A girl. I stared at him, cold crawling up my back. He went on. She looked like she was in trouble, so I stopped. But when I got close, she wasn't right, man. Her eyes were just gone. I didn't say a word, just nodded. Got back in the truck and drove away, hands shaking on the wheel. I've avoided that route ever since. Some say there are places where the veil between here and whatever's next gets thin. Places where echoes of pain, fear, or death get stuck like gum on the bottom of a boot. Maybe that overpass is one of them. Maybe that girl isn't a ghost at all. Maybe she's something worse. A warning. A trap. A thing waiting to see who'll stop long enough to let it in. Whatever the truth is, I know this much. If you ever find yourself driving through northern Texas late at night, and you see a young girl standing under an overpass, facing away from the road, Keep driving. Don't slow down. Don't look in the mirror. And for the love of God, don't stop. I've always said the worst thing about long-haul trucking isn't the hours, or the diet, or even the isolation. It's the in-between places. Those empty stretches of highway where you could break down, vanish, or lose your damn mind, and no one would know for days. Out there, nothing feels real. You start questioning what you see, what you hear, even your own memory. That's what happened to me back in 2015. Somewhere along the New Mexico-Texas border, I pulled into a fuel station that shouldn't have existed, and I've been trying to forget it ever since. At the time, I was running a solo haul from El Paso to Kansas City. I was already behind schedule thanks to a busted alternator the night before, so I opted to skip rest and drive straight through. My rig was running smooth. I had energy drinks in the cooler, and the roads were clear. I remember the sun had just dipped below the horizon when I passed through Tucumcari, heading northeast on US 54. My GPS said I had about 6 hours left, and I figured I'd stop at the next big travel plaza for diesel and a stretch. Nothing unusual about the night. Not yet. About an hour past Tucumcari, the landscape turned bone dry and flat. You could see for miles in every direction, but there was nothing out there. Just dust, sagebrush, and telephone poles. No towns, no lights, no signs. I started getting a little uneasy, mostly because I hadn't seen another vehicle in close to 40 minutes. That's a long time to be alone on a US highway, even for a trucker. My fuel gauge dropped below a quarter tank, and I started to feel that little itch of anxiety in the back of my skull. I refreshed the GPS, and it showed the next stop was a Love's Travel Plaza, about 42 miles ahead. I relaxed a little and turned up the volume on the CB, even though nobody was talking. Just silence and static. I kept driving. 15 minutes later, I saw lights in the distance. Neon, low to the ground, looked like a small fuel station. No big signage, no trucks parked outside, just a modest glow. I figured maybe my GPS hadn't registered it because it was some local spot not tied to the big chains. Still, fuel is fuel. I was tired, hungry, and didn't want to push my luck with the gauge. So, I pulled off onto a narrow exit ramp that hadn't been listed on the GPS. The station sat about 100 yards off the highway, surrounded by nothing but sand and weeds. It looked like it hadn't been updated since the 80s. Single island with 2 old-style pumps, a tiny convenience store with a flickering fluorescent light inside, and a small sign that read, Ed Stop and Fill. No price listed, no other vehicles. Just that weird hum of fluorescent lighting and a flickering open sign in the window. I should have kept driving, but I didn't. I pulled up next to the pump, shut off the engine, and got out. The second my boots hit the pavement, I felt it. The temperature dropped at least 15 degrees. The air was still. Heavy. Like walking into a sealed basement. There was no wind, no bugs, no sound at all. I looked up at the night sky, and even that felt wrong. I couldn't see a single star, just a black dome above me. I reached for the pump handle and froze. The nozzle looked clean. Too clean. Like it had never been used. The digital readout was blank. No numbers. No welcome message. Just dead screen. I tried to squeeze the handle anyway. Nothing. Frustrated, I headed toward the convenience store. As I stepped up to the door, I noticed something else. The glass was so clean, it didn't even reflect my face. It was like looking through perfectly clear water. I grabbed the handle and pushed the door open. The bell above the door dinged. One sharp note. Inside, the place was stocked with all the usual crap. Jerky, gum, soda, old dusty candy. But it was immaculate. Every shelf perfectly aligned. No scuff marks on the tile. No footprints. It felt staged, like a movie set waiting for actors to arrive. I walked up to the counter and waited. No clerk. No movement behind the smudged plexiglass divider. There was a little bell on the counter, and I tapped it once. The ding echoed longer than it should have. Still nothing. That's when I noticed the cooler along the back wall. It was stocked with rows of water bottles, all identical, perfectly lined up. But the labels were blank, just white plastic. No brand, no barcode, no expiration date. I backed away slowly and turned toward the door. Something was wrong here. Not just off. Wrong in a way I couldn't explain. I reached the door and pulled. It didn't budge. I yanked harder. Still stuck. No lock, no latch, just wouldn't open. My heart started racing. I pounded on the glass, yelling, but my voice sounded muffled, deadened, like I was shouting into a closet. I looked around for a back door or a window, anything, but the store was just four walls of blank nothing. I ran to the back, past the aisles of untouched snacks, and found a metal door labeled Employees Only. I didn't hesitate. I threw it open and stepped into pitch blackness. No light. No sound. Then the door slammed shut behind me. Total darkness. My breath echoed in my ears. I pulled out my phone and flicked on the flashlight. The beam cut through the dark, landing on something that stopped me cold. It was a room, but not a back office or storage area. It was a mirror of the convenience store. Same shelves, same coolers, same counter, but flipped, like a reflection. And it was old. Everything was aged, cracked, rusted. The tiles were stained. The candy wrappers were yellowed. And worst of all, there was a man standing behind the counter. He wasn't moving. He was facing away from me, standing rigid. His shirt was torn, stained with something dark and dried. His skin was pale, thin, almost translucent. I tried to call out, but my throat locked up. The man didn't move. He just stood there, one hand resting on the register like a statue. Then his head started turning. Slow, mechanical. He looked at me with hollow, sunken eyes, and his mouth opened, but no sound came out. Just a faint whistle, like air escaping from a cracked pipe. He raised one hand and pointed. Not at me, but at something behind me. I turned around fast. There was a third door, a black one, no handle, just a thin seam in the wall. And from behind it, something was knocking. Software rhythmic, measured, like someone tapping with their knuckles. 3 knocks. Silence. 3 more knocks. That's when the man behind the counter spoke. His voice was low, distorted, like a warped tape recording. "You shouldn't be here." I didn't wait for more. I bolted toward the door I came in from, praying it would open this time. I hit it full force, and it flew open, throwing me back into the original store. Except, it wasn't the same. The lights were off. The shelves were empty. The windows were gone, replaced by solid black walls. The entire place was silent. I stumbled through the dark, found the front door again, and tried it. This time, it opened. I fell out into the parking lot like a man escaping a fire. The cold air hit me like a wave. My truck was still there, idling. Lights on, engine running. But the fuel pump I'd parked next to, it was gone. Not broken, not moved, just gone. No island, no pavement, just sand. I climbed into the cab and tore out of there without looking back. Got back onto the highway and drove straight through the night without stopping. The GPS never registered that exit ramp. I checked 3 times. The Love's Plaza showed up again 30 minutes later, just like it had promised from the beginning. I didn't tell anyone at first, just tried to forget. But 2 years later, I ran into a younger driver at a yard in Amarillo. We were swapping road stories, and he mentioned this weird old station he pulled into late one night on a solo run. He said it was pristine. Silent. Said the door locked behind him. When I asked what happened, he just went quiet and muttered. I left before the knocking started. I don't know what that place was. A pocket of something old? A dead place clinging to life? A trap? All I know is this. If you're ever driving through eastern New Mexico and you see a small, glowing station with no other cars and no gas prices, don't stop. No matter how low your tank is, keep driving. I've been driving long haul since I was 23. I've hauled steel beams through icy Dakota roads, crawled through the Rockies in whiteout conditions, and once even pulled a stuck RV full of tourists out of a flash flood in New Mexico. I've seen it all, or at least I thought I had, until the night I pulled into that damned way station just off exit 43. I was about 9 hours into a run from Nashville to Amarillo. Hauled furniture mostly, antique stuff, high value, so I had to be extra careful with the load. It was early March, just after midnight, and I'd been fighting sleep since Memphis. Something about the long stretches of empty road puts your brain in a weird trance. You don't realize how tired you are until you start to drift, just a little. Then snap back when your tires hit the rumble strip. I kept slapping my cheeks, rolling the windows down, blasting classic rock, but nothing worked longer than a minute or two. That's when I saw the way station signs. Blue reflective letters. AR. Way Station. 2 miles. All trucks must exit when flashing. And yeah, they were flashing. I cursed under my breath. It was late, and I was way underweight. Normally, I would have just rolled past and prayed they weren't manned, but I'd already gotten 1 citation this year. Couldn't risk another. So, I flipped on my blinker and turned off at exit 43. The off-ramp dipped down into what looked like a patch of woods. No streetlights, just my headlights, catching leafless trees and broken guardrails. The kind of road where your GPS glitches and your cell signal dies. That's exactly what happened. Bars dropped to 0 the moment I turned in. The way station was a small, single-lane scale house with 1 window lit. No other trucks in line. No one behind me. I pulled up to the scale and looked toward the booth, waiting for the green light. Nothing. Just the red stop light glowing like an eye in the fog. I waited. 15 seconds. Then a full minute. Still red. I tapped my horn once, just a courtesy tap. Still nothing. Then, just as I reached for my gear shift, the light switched to green. I exhaled and started to roll forward when I noticed something strange in the booth window. Someone was inside, barely visible. They weren't moving, just standing, watching. I squinted, couldn't make out their face. Looked like a man wearing a state trooper uniform, but the brim of his hat cast a shadow over his whole face. He stood perfectly still as I pulled forward, not even reaching for the button to print my receipt. Just watching. I rolled past slowly. No wave, no gesture, no movement at all. Just stillness, the kind that makes your spine itch. I told myself it was late. Maybe the guy was half asleep. Maybe his shift was about to end. Whatever. Not my problem. I eased back onto the road. Only the road didn't look the same. I mean, I thought I'd turned off at exit 43, right? That's what the sign said. But the road I merged onto wasn't the highway. It was narrow. 1 lane each way. No reflective dividers. No signs. Just trees. Thick ones. Packed in like a wall on both sides. I figured I'd missed the on-ramp somehow and taken a detour road. It happens. GPS was still dead, but I kept driving, hoping I'd hit a familiar route soon. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Still no signs, no lights, no cars. Then, the way station appeared again. Same booth, same red light, same off-ramp angle. I slammed the brakes. How the hell? I sat there, hands tight on the wheel, staring as the green light blinked on. I didn't move. A low hum filled the air. Not the engine, not the radio, just buzzing. My mirrors vibrated slightly, like something was about to pass by, but the road behind me was empty. Then the booth light flickered. And the man inside? He wasn't inside anymore. He was standing on the road, directly in front of my truck. Same uniform, same hat. Still no face, just darkness where his eyes and mouth should have been. I didn't wait. I jerked the wheel left and floored it, tires squealing off the asphalt shoulder. The truck rocked violently as I forced it back onto the road. I glanced in my rear view. He was gone. Or so I thought. A mile later, the CB radio crackled to life. I hadn't touched it all night. It hadn't made a single sound. Unit 78. You didn't weigh in properly. Return now. The voice was gravelly, broken, as if someone had recorded a sentence, chopped it up, and spliced the wrong parts together. I flipped the switch off. Didn't care. I was done. Except, the way station came back again. Third time, same damned place. But now the stoplight wasn't red. It was black. Burnt out. And the man? He was standing in the middle of the road again, but this time, he was holding a clipboard. I braked hard, screeching to a stop just before hitting him. The engine rattled under me, and my heart slammed in my chest. He took one step forward. I shifted into reverse. That's when the trailer shook, like something had climbed onto it. The whole cab jolted, suspension creaking. Then another jolt, like someone walking across the roof. I looked up, barely daring to move. My dome light flickered on for a split second, and I saw it. A second figure crouched on the roof of my cab. No face, just a reflective dot vest, like an inspector, but completely silent. I hit the gas. I don't know how fast I got the rig going, but I floored it for what felt like miles. Branches clawed at the side mirrors. Fog rolled thick across the hood. And still, no road signs. Just endless, looping forest. Until I passed a sign. White, rusted, barely readable. Freight number 78. Never arrived. No logo, no state symbol. Just that one sentence, nailed to a crooked post. I screamed something I don't remember and slammed the brakes again. My hands shook, my legs locked. I couldn't breathe. That's when the radio buzzed again. This time, it was my voice. Yeah, this is Dean Holloway. Nashville to Amarillo. Coming up on way station. Looks empty. Gonna keep rolling. It played back, word for word, like someone had recorded me an hour ago. The CB clicked off. Then came the knock. Not on the door. On the glass of the passenger side window. I turned, and there was no one there. But the clipboard was pressed against the glass. My own name typed at the top. Below it, only one sentence. Status? In transit. Never cleared. I don't remember the next part too well. I know I blacked out. When I woke up, I was parked in a truck stop 3 hours west. No memory of how I got there. GPS was back. Phone had full bars. Trailer was locked. Everything normal. Except one thing. The scale receipt, the one they print when you pass through a way station. It was on my dashboard. Time stamped exactly 12:09 a.m. But there's no way station off exit 43. Never was. I looked it up later. Arkansas DOT says that whole section of highway was rerouted 5 years ago after a fatal accident involving a truck carrying antique furniture. Driver never found. Truck number? Freight 78. To this day, I'll never stop at a way station if I'm the only rig around. And if a DOT officer ever waves you in late at night, look at his face. If you can't see it, don't stop. Some runs just feel wrong before you even start them. It's not always something you can explain, just a heaviness, a nagging voice in your gut telling you this trip ain't gonna end right. That was me the night freight number 78 went missing. And to this day, No one's been able to explain what happened. Not dispatch, not the DOT, not even the guys at the yard who loaded the cargo. The run was supposed to be simple. I was picking up a sealed load from a warehouse in Sterling, Colorado, and hauling it to a distribution center outside Des Moines. Standard freight. No hazmat, no refrigeration. Just boxes. At least that's what they told me. Dispatch labeled it miscellaneous retail. Nothing flagged. No warnings. I'd done that route more times than I could count. I got to the Sterling yard just after sundown. The place was dead quiet. Only one other truck in the lot, and no employees in sight. That was weird, but not unheard of for after-hours pickups. Sometimes they leave the paperwork and keys in a lockbox. That night, though, there was no box. Just a clipboard taped to the back of the trailer with one sheet of paper. No bill of lading, no contents listed. Just my name, truck number, trailer number, and the words, "Freight number 78, do not open." That was it. No signatures, no weight, nothing else. I figured maybe it was military surplus or something sensitive. Not unheard of. Some companies run sealed loads with minimal info for insurance or security reasons. Wasn't my job to ask questions. I hitched up, did a quick walk around, and everything looked fine. Trailer was locked, tires were good, brakes checked out. So I rolled. The first 100 miles were smooth. Traffic was light, sky was clear, and the highway was straight as hell. Nebraska's always like that. Flat, open, easy to zone out if you're not careful. I was cruising eastbound on Highway 30, keeping steady at 62, when I started hearing something from the trailer. At first, I thought it was just the normal shifting of cargo. But this was different. It came in rhythms, like footsteps. 1, 2, pause. 1, 2, pause. I turned down the radio and leaned toward the back wall of the cab. It stopped. Dead silence. I told myself it was just the trailer flexing in the cold. That happens. Metal shifts. Axles creak. But something about it stuck with me. It sounded too deliberate. Too human. I pulled into a rest stop outside a town called Cozad around 10:30 p.m. Just one other rig there, parked at the far end of the lot. I left the engine running, climbed out, and circled back to the trailer. The padlock was still sealed. No signs of tampering. I stood there for a minute, just listening. Nothing. Then I noticed the temperature. It had dropped at least 20 degrees since I'd stepped out. My breath fogged up instantly. The hairs on my arms stood straight up. But the weather app on my phone said it was still 55 degrees. And the air? It didn't feel like night air. It felt wrong, like freezer burn, like walking into a morgue. I backed off and got back in the cab, shaking it off. I figured I'd just haul straight through. No more stops. The sooner I dropped this load, the better. That's when things got worse. About an hour later, somewhere near Gothenburg, I glanced at my rear camera feed. The trailer's external cam, just a grainy night vision shot mounted near the tail. I check it every now and then out of habit. Except this time, there was someone back there. I froze. The feed was dim, blurry, but unmistakable. A figure standing just outside the field of vision. I could only see a shoulder, part of an arm. But it wasn't moving. I stared at it for a full minute, heart pounding. Then the feed glitched. A sharp burst of static. When it came back, the figure was gone. I nearly pulled over. Nearly. But something told me not to. Not out here. Not in the middle of nowhere with no lights for 10 miles in either direction. I gripped the wheel tighter and kept going. 15 minutes later, my GPS blinked out. Just turned black. No sound. No rerouting. Then the dashboard flickered. Not all at once, but slowly, like power draining from a dying battery. The engine didn't stall, but the lights dimmed. The air in the cab got colder. Heavy. Like I was driving through water. And then, the smell hit me. It came from the vents. Sour, metallic, like rotting meat soaked in bleach. I gagged and rolled down the window, but the outside air didn't help. The smell was inside. Deep. I thought maybe something had leaked in the trailer. A busted chemical container, maybe. But the manifest didn't list anything hazardous. Hell, the manifest didn't list anything. Then came the knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. From inside the trailer wall behind me. I nearly lost control. I swerved into the shoulder, tires kicking gravel, but managed to steady the rig. I didn't stop. I couldn't. My instincts were screaming now. Every alarm in my head was going off. I drove like a madman for the next hour, not stopping until I hit the outskirts of Grand Island. I pulled into a well-lit lot behind a 24-hour diner and jumped out. I ran to the back of the trailer, panting, heart racing. The padlock was gone. Not broken, not cut. Gone. The latch hung loose, swinging in the wind. I opened the doors with shaking hands. Empty. Completely empty. Not a single box. Not a scrap of debris. Nothing. I checked every inch of that trailer. Floor, corners, walls, clean as the day it was manufactured. I even got a flashlight and checked for scratch marks, footprints, anything. But the floor was dusty, undisturbed, like no one had ever loaded it at all. I backed away, hands on my head, trying to process what I was seeing. I took a photo, then called dispatch. I told them the load was missing. They said, "What load?" I said, "Freight number 78, from Sterling." There was silence on the other end. Then the dispatcher said, "Luke, that trailer was never assigned a load." I told her about the clipboard, the warehouse, the paperwork. She pulled up the log. Trailer 78 was listed as available, not assigned. No pickup. No delivery. I told her I'd been hauling it for 5 hours, that I'd heard something inside. She told me to stay put. Said someone would come take a look. An hour later, a guy in a plain blue van showed up. No company logo. No ID. He walked around the trailer without saying a word, then handed me a form to sign. No explanation. Just a signature line. I didn't sign it. He left without another word. A week later, I got a call from a blocked number. The voice on the line said, "You were never there. Forget Freight 78. Then they hung up. I tried to track the call. Nothing. I tried to report it to DOT. No record. I even drove back to the Sterling yard. Gone. Fenced off. No signs. Just an empty field. I still have the photo. The one I took of the trailer before I opened it. If you zoom in, you can see something in the corner of the frame, just past the trailer. A shape. Vague. Shadowy. It looks like someone standing behind the trailer, watching me.